We are so excited to be here with Gina Samuels from the Production House Events. Gina, you won 2 amazing awards last night at the Melbourne Business Network Awards night. We're so excited. So you won the Wellbeing Social Wellbeing Award, which we sponsored, Project Optimism. So we wanted to have a chat with you. And you also won the overall Business of the Year Award, which is just so exciting. So we wanted to have a chat with you and hear more. We want to showcase you to the universe. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the Production House Events and what you actually do so everyone knows?
Sure, with pleasure. So my husband and I are the co-owners and co-founders of the Production House Events, and we run all sorts of events and conferences, predominantly for the medical industry, also for the legal industry, and for a number of corporates. And we do everything from small workshops, masterclasses, virtual events, which we did a lot of in the last 2 years, and also very large mainstream conferences. And we've had the pleasure of working with some of the most amazing leaders and amazing people in Australia and New Zealand, working over the last, I think we're up to 12 years now.
Wow. Amazing. And you obviously entered the social wellbeing category. Can you just tell us a little bit, why did you enter that category and why are you so passionate about that?
Do you know what? It's interesting because we've always, social wellbeing and respect to us underpins our whole business. And I think that our business has grown year on year and the way it has grown over the last 12 years because of the people that we work with. And so we've always really put a strong emphasis on respect and well-being of our staff, of our clients, of the sponsors that come to our events, of really all stakeholders involved. And I really believe that if you treat people with respect and always go into any arrangement with a win-win attitude to make sure that people actually get the best outcome of their experience with you, that's the most important thing. But the thing over the last 2 years, I think that has really been very prominent is the well-being of your staff, because it was a tough 2 years, especially in our industry. So we really have a very, very strong emphasis on looking after our staff, making sure that we're checking in on them from a mental health perspective, making sure that we're providing a great working environment and really looking after them along with all the other stakeholders we mentioned. And then over the course of this year, we formalised that by putting together a program that really talks about how we care for the people around us, and not just the people as well, also for our country, our community, and our planet. So that's really what underpins our whole business. And really everything sort of falls out from there, because ultimately that's what underpins the way that we actually go around our business.
Yeah, amazing. Love it. Gina, you know, obviously the events industry is one of the industries that was just really bashed during this time. What did you do? How did you manage to get through?
It was unbelievable, because I am the eternal optimist. So I come from a background where optimism is in my blood, it's in my veins. It comes down from my grandparents, my parents, and straight through to me. So when it was happening, I was in denial. I'm like, no, it will be 3 months, it'll be 6 months. And it was like a domino effect where it was literally one after the other. But I think that luckily, first of all, my husband, Harry, who is who's the CEO of our company, he already 2 years prior to COVID hitting had already seen that the future was digital. And he had embarked on this already, and we'd already built a platform online where we actually were promoting our business masterclassing, which is all about the digital experience. We'd already embarked on looking at technology to actually support this. We'd done a few events with some sort of virtual aspects of it. And then when COVID hit, we were ready, even though the technology actually caught up with us, because obviously the technology available prior to COVID wasn't quite up to standard, but we were actually ready for it. So within months of COVID hitting, we were already delivering digital events. But the thing that really, I think that is the biggest thing was our relationships with our clients, because they trusted us and they empowered us and they were with us and partnered with us to be able to deliver these events, because you can only do these things if you have great clients. And as a result, we did some really, really great events. We actually won an award last week for one of our medical events, which was very exciting. But it's funny because people ask me and say, oh my God, they almost tilt their heads and look at you in sort of disappointment and feeling sorry for us, saying, how were the last 2 years? And I think that the last 2 years, whilst they were challenging, they were still really empowering. And I feel like we've come out of the 2 years feeling stronger than we began it. And obviously, things have happened and it's been a tough 2 years, but somehow we've come out of it a lot stronger.
I love that. I think that's really inspirational. Victor, over to you.
Look, you talk about optimism, and inheriting it from your mother and your grandparents and the like. And a lot of optimism is inherited, it's genetic, but most of us still have to work on it.
Yes.
And it comes from life experience, as you've talked about, from faith, from family, from friends. So can we ask you that fundamental question? What makes you optimistic?
I think that definitely my background makes me optimistic. I come from a background where my grandparents were Holocaust survivors and they survived the most unbelievable stories. So when you have that as your background, it makes anything pale in comparison. So when people thought that COVID was the worst thing to ever hit, when you're sitting at dinner tables and talking about much larger stories, you realize we're actually okay. We're living in beautiful homes. We can eat. We're safe. We're warm. It's a pretty big thing. So that absolutely underpins who I am as a human being. But at the same time, I think I agree with you. That is part of it, but it's also what you do with it moving forward. And I just surround myself with amazing people. The negative Nellies are not my cup of tea because I can't buy into that whole path. So I surround myself with good people. I read inspiring books. I watch inspiring television. I listen to inspiring podcasts. I have unbelievable people working in our team. Every single person we have handpicked in our team at the production house events is a spectacular human being. They've all got amazing stories. They're educated. They're articulate. And they are an incredible talent within the broader team. And we're lucky in that a lot of our team members have been with us for many, many years. So I think that by being around the right people and by surrounding yourself with the right dialogue and I guess things that you're reading, it does keep you positive. And even when things do dip, you pick up very quickly. So that's it. And also, keeping healthy, exercising and taking good vitamins and putting good things into your body. It's all about that as well.
Well, absolutely. And so resonates because Jenny and I both, like you, it's refugees and migrants. And the evidence is that the kids and the grandkids of refugees tend to be the most optimistic in any society. So you absolutely capture that. And Viktor Frankl's, Man's Search for Meaning, I think, you actually almost put it as articulately as he does. So that's absolutely brilliant. So, working on Project Optimism, we see optimism as one of the key underpinnings of well-being. That how can you be resilient unless you believe that persisting, the future is going to be better, and the medical evidence today that shows that healthy longevity, is so underpinned by the trait of optimism. So in your work in bringing, in improving the well-being of your team, of your clients, of your stakeholders, of your participants, what do you see as that connection between optimism and well-being?
I think people feed off it. And I think that it's contagious. And I think that it's all very important to be optimistic and to really, live and breathe it. But I will say where I think our business is strong, and this is where my husband very much comes in, is also marrying that up with the business and then your plan Bs and your plan Cs and the technology that supports what you're doing. So that way, because things do go wrong. I mean, you can imagine we're doing events with 1,000, 2,000 people. We've got doctors, we've got surgeons, we've got barristers, we've got lawyers. Things happen. So what happens when those things happen? What's your risk analysis? What's your contingency plan? So that way, even when things are going pear-shaped, you can travel through it. And my mum used to always say, You have to act like a duck. You glide over the water while your little feet are like paddling underneath the water, and no one sees that. They just see you gliding. And that's what I tell my team. It's ultimately acting like a duck. So where we're at is, yes, we come with our modus operandi is positive, encouraging, enthusiastic, but realistic. And where the realism comes in is being well planned, using technology to support your business. That way you're not repeating things over and over again, and that you're automating things. And that way, if someone actually goes on holiday, things can continue, or if someone goes down, we can continue the business. So it's really marrying up the two.
Yeah, that's utterly brilliant, because it's that realistic optimism and that infectious optimism, and unlocking the optimism in the team that's obviously made you such a success. Now, one of the things that Jenny and I and the team have been studying is, in this sort of fog of pessimism that characterizes a lot of the news coverage, people are yearning for positive leadership, the sort of leadership that your husband and your team exemplifies. So I'd love to ask you, as you've developed as a human being and as an entrepreneur, who've been the leaders and who've been the bosses who've inspired you?
It's such an interesting question, because I actually recently did a post on LinkedIn about this, where I talked about how important having mentors and positive influences are. Because I think that, that these things that you get out of these experiences of working with really smart people, or risk takers, or people who just push the edges. I've been very lucky in that I finished university and I was picked up pretty quickly to work for a company where I worked for some amazing, amazing human beings. These were some professionals that had done very, very well, and they sort of handpicked a number of young ones, and we sort of came in and they taught us how to hustle, they taught us how to work, they taught us how to walk into a meeting and to make sure that you wrote down what the person's name of their dog or their partner or their favorite holiday was, so that way you'd remember it for the next time. All the little things in business that are important about personalization and making people feel special and follow up. And they were amazing. And I've been very, very lucky to work with some very smart people. And throughout my career, I've worked for some very large multinationals where I've learned a lot, because you learn about corporate structure and you learn about red tape, and you learn about all sorts of different things. And there are mentors in there, but the ones that I've really learned from are the entrepreneurs. Like, they're gutsy and they're risk takers and they're fearless, and they lose sometimes, but they recover. So they've definitely been amazing, but also some sort of more high profile people like Simon Sinek and people like that, where they're smart and they're savvy, but they're real and they're not textbook. So you can actually apply what they're saying to real life without it being too difficult. And then there's also just inspirational people that are not necessarily within the industry or within the corporate industry, but they're just great people. And, you take little bits from everywhere. And that's why it's very important to network. And that's why, I'm so proud to be involved in your community, because I really, really, truly believe in tribes, in community, in collaboration, because 1 + 1 is always more than 2. You get people together, and that's where magic's made. It's about connection.
That's utterly brilliant. As you say, like Simon, there's a realism to it. We recently did a survey of Australians asking them who was the most inspiring leader. And astonishingly, Angela Merkel came up.
Really?
And I asked our friend Caroline Ward, who runs the Optimist Heart and the 4 Faces of Women, why that is. And she said the thing for any woman leader is Angela is so relatable.
Wow.
Persistent, she looks you in the eye, but she'll go to the pub and have a beer. It's here she is walking with kings, but at the same time can sit down with a group of German backpackers and sing and have a beer. And she goes, the English newspapers always used to rib her for wearing the same hiking trousers every year. And she said, why do I need to change them? They're comfortable. So, hey, do you want to go back to those people who picked you up? Do you want to give them a bit of a shout out, those early career mentors?
So that Steve Sachs, Ronnie Lewis, Philip Weinman, they were all, I don't know if you've come across any of them. Jenny, you probably know them.
Yeah.
We had something special. We had 3 different companies working from one office building, and we had a ball. I mean, it was some really successful people came out of that building. There were some big players, and we really. I learned to love work. And, you speak to so many people about how's work, and they go, oh, it's that whole, oh, such a drag. Oh, I've never been like that. I've always loved working. I mean, certainly there's not every day is a great day, but I love the journey. And I think that having started off like that was just amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, you said at the beginning of our discussion that you're really optimistic about 2022.
Yeah.
What are you can you share a little bit more about that?
That's funny, because every time I speak to someone, you get I think that's quite polarizing in terms of people either like, oh, we might go into another lockdown, or, oh, it's going to be an amazing year. The reality is you can choose which path you're going to go down. And I'm not opting to go down the path of going down into another lockdown. But again, using that whole logic of we do have plan B in place. I know we can go into another lockdown, and we're actually prepared for it. We're prepared from a technology perspective. We're prepared from a personnel perspective. We're prepared financially. But the reality is that, we've done what we had to do. We've gone and gotten vaccinated. We're in a different position now. We also know what we're dealing with. And I think that the world has evolved. Yes, there could be some hiccups along the way, but we're kind of more prepared. I think, 2020 was a little bit, I think everyone was in shock. 2021, we were all escalating and hustling, and 2022 I just see as being really, really positive. And look, we're very lucky. We've actually got almost a full book for next year. We could, in terms of our staffing, we could bring on a few more events, but ultimately we've pretty much almost booked out for next year, because people want to meet, and people want to connect, and people want to learn. And that's also inspiring. I love that I'm involved in an industry that helps people learn. It's amazing.
I love it. Yeah, it's so aligned with our values, and we could talk all day. Thank you so much for joining us and talking to us about your optimism and well-being and the impact that you've made through the business, and congratulations again on winning the award. And we're so thrilled to be able to be part of that journey.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the recognition. My team, we are all on such a high as a result of this. It is the most spectacular way to finish the year.
Love it. We're excited for you too.
Thank you.